So if you've been working on a song, or even if you're just experimenting with learning some new chords, and you've stumbled across the F major chord, then you would have seen that this chord is quite difficult to play. Now, the most common shape for an F major chord uses a movable E shape and makes use of a full bar across all 6 strings, like so. Now, that chord is very hard to fret, even if you spend some time placing your fingers and working on that chord to get all of the notes nice and clear. And it's even harder when you try to fret that chord within a progression, maintaining the timing of your other chords and getting to that chord and performing it nice and clear and nice and cleanly. So what if I told you that there were some hacks that you could use to enable you to play this troublesome chord with ease? Well, that's exactly what I'm going to show you how to do. So let's take a look at a simplified chord grab that will enable you to play the F major chord. Now, the chord shape that we're going to be using is actually based on an abbreviated version of that full bar chord shape, except we're just going to be playing the top 4 strings. To be able to play this chord, you're going to have to use a partial bar. You're going to have to hold 2 strings with 1 finger. And that's a really good place to start. Take your first finger, just take the outer edge of the first finger. Don't try and lay the flat of your finger. Lay it slightly on the outer edge, and my thumb is behind the 2nd fret. And see if you can get those notes nice and clean. Then place your 2nd finger on the G string at the 2nd fret, and then place your 3rd finger on the D string at the 3rd fret. And there we have our F major chord. Now, that simplified shape is actually an abbreviation of this troublesome shape that we're trying to avoid playing. We're literally just playing the top 4 strings. So we don't need to hold those bottom strings, and we certainly don't need to hold that full bar. So we're just playing the top 4 strings, barring with the 1st finger on the top 2 strings. Now, to get to that chord and to be able to grab successfully at that chord, I would start off with your 3rd finger and gradually place the fingers down. Now, the reason why I'd say start with the 3rd finger is because the 3rd finger, when you're strumming the chord, is going to be the first note that you play. I should also point out that this note on the D string is the root note. So that's the note of F. So as you can see, I lay the fingers down as I strike the string. I'm not trying to start from the 1st finger, lay the fingers down, and then play, because that will interrupt a chord progression when you're trying to change from one chord into that F major chord. So just practice that. Practice taking your 3rd finger, starting with that finger, and as you place the fingers, try and experiment putting the fingers down or placing the fingers down as you go to strike the chord, instead of trying to hold the chord and then play it. A lot of guitar players will do this, you know, they'll start strumming, they're actually forming a chord, some of these more complex shapes, as they are playing. Now, something else that we should think about are the open low strings. These strings are quite overpowering. Now, the A string will actually work in the chord. There is an A note in our F major chord. So if you accidentally strike that A note, it doesn't matter. And in fact, that makes the chord sound quite nice. I would avoid, though, striking the low E string. And there's a way that you can get around that. You can either bring your thumb over to sort of mute the string out. Actually, even there, my 3rd finger is touching the A string. Let's let that note ring out, that A string. It doesn't matter if you strike it. Or another thing that you can try to do is to sort of minimize the movement with your picking hand so that you're not striking those lower strings. Now, if you still find that partial bar troublesome and tricky to play, we can actually abbreviate this shape even further, where we just play the D string at the 3rd fret, the G string at the 2nd fret, and the B string at the first fret. That note on the top E is another root note, so we don't actually need that note. So if your first finger is just lightly touching the top E, as you can hear, it's muted, I can actually play an F chord without using any bar at all. So once again, when you're practicing this shape, you can start off by applying your third finger. That's the lowest note in the chord. So put that finger on the D string and then place the other fingers down. Okay, I'm muting out the top E string, just keeping it really nice and simple, and eventually you should get used to be able to laying that shape. If you can play the bar on the top two strings, even better, but like I said, a real kind of quick fix and a great chord hack is just to play those three strings. You can either mute out the A string, let it ring, mute out the top E, or bring your thumb over to mute the low E. So there you have a chord hack for playing the F major chord.